you doing?
Good.
How's your day?
Good.
Scoring goals? Oh. Everybody, how you doing?
Good.
How's your day?
Good.
Scoring goals? Oh. everybody, how you doing?
Good.
How's your day?
Good.
Scoring goals? Oh.
Welcome back to Snetterton for the BRSCC Caterham weekend. We are back with the Bilstein Caterham 7 310R Championship, and on the top spot again is number 88. It's Pete Walters. He won from pole last time out, so will he do the same again? Pete, the championship advantage still in your hands?
Yep, seems that way. These guys don't make it easy though. It's one of the toughest wins I think I've had, definitely this year. So more of the same today. Hopefully get out clean start and then do where we go.
So Harry's a couple of positions behind you. He starts from 4th on the grid. Does that make it any easier for you, or are you still keeping half an eye behind you?
You've always got to keep an eye behind you in Caterham racing, but I just need to focus on what I'm doing, go forwards and
stuff. We wish you the best of luck for your second round, the first of this afternoon for the 310R Championship. Starting alongside him is number 79 Lewis Thompson, who's had an absolutely incredible season leading up to this point. Lewis, I think it's fair to say, other than Donington, you've had an absolutely storming season. My goodness me, I mean it's going to be asked how.
I'm not too sure myself, to be honest. I was probably just a lucky boy on a few occasions. So, but yeah, Pete made me work really hard yesterday, and he managed to come out on top. So, lost the winning streak.
How dare he? So, are you looking to chalk up the W again today? I mean, you're even despite the fact that you missed, obviously you weren't at Donington, you're still right in there in the championship hunt. So maybe not quite for the top spot. Again, is it just a very heavy right foot? What's the secret?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. It's probably but yeah, I'm going to try and work really hard today and try and make sure I get another W. And the championship is still on. I just need to make sure I keep finishing on the podium and keeping within touch of Pete, really. And I think on drop scores we could have it.
Well, best of luck for today. There's number 79 Lewis Thompson, who has won every single race that he's attended. Wasn't at Donington, but won every race except for yesterday, where Pete Walters beat him to it, and even then he was still on the podium. Number 15 David Yates is on the second row. David,
how you doing?
So then, starting from 3rd, you must be quite pleased with that.
Yeah, it was a good race yesterday. We had a lot of fun, hoping for similar today. So
championship season's not been quite as straightforward as some others. Sum it up for us in your words.
The 420s was a little bit disappointing, but since coming back to the 310s, loved every minute of it. So.
You stay on the podium this time, or was it see what happens?
Hoping to move up a little bit.
Good man, nothing wrong with that kind of aspiration. Thank you very much, David Yates. Got time for another one. Hopefully let's head over to Harry Cook, who is second in the championship, as mentioned, chasing Mr. Walters. Harry,
yep.
So yesterday's race didn't quite go as you planned. Still a strong finish, still gunning for the top spot, one hopes?
Yeah, definitely chasing the win today, 100%. Podium at the very least. It was a bit annoying. It's always the worst position to finish 4th, I think. Never get the trophy.
So what's going to be the difference? What's the change in approach from yesterday, or was it just luck?
I think I'm just going to get a good start, hopefully, and then try and attack them early to actually get that position. Because yesterday I think I sat back a bit too much, so hopefully I can get in amongst it. May your right foot stay heavy, sir. Yeah, best of luck. So Harry Cook, second in the championship. The Caterham 7 310Rs are heading out to track. It's time for me to throw to Scott Woodward in the commentary box.
Thank you indeed, Chris. Yep, the cars are just about to head out for their second race of the weekend, the Bilstein Caterham 7 310R Championship, the fastest Caterhams here of the weekend, the penultimate step on the Caterham Motorsport ladder before they reach the Caterham 7 Championship UK. But this is the ultimate evolution of what starts out as the original Academy car some 3 or 4 seasons ago, when most of these drivers would have started their racing careers. Scott Woodward and Chris Hutchison back in the commentary box again, and after the breathless, almost quite literally breathless racing that we saw this morning, or in the first part of today, particularly provisionally crowning our 2 Academy champions, we now come to our second to last Caterham action of the day. It's our last championship action of the day in terms of ones that have point-scoring connotations. And given the fact that yesterday was something of a landmark day in the season, given that Lewis Thompson's domination was finally beaten, and all the races that he's entered, he's won all of them, except contender for the title, managed to pick up the win. This now means it's going to be quite a grudge match at the front, because Lewis will have that little bit of a blot on his copybook for this season of all the races that he's contested this year. He'll want to get revenge for that, but he'll also have the back of his mind that if he was going for the 100% streak, just missed out on it, but he's going to want to have payback for that today.
I think if I had a copybook which only had a second place as its blot on there, I think I'd be pretty happy. So yeah, not a bad result at all.
Let's take a look at the grid as a result from race 1. So Pete Walters and Lewis Thompson on the front row of the grid. David Yates, who was superb form yesterday, still looking for that first Caterham win. Could it happen today from third on the grid? He starts alongside Harry Cook. Then it's Lars Hoffman and James Wingfield on the third row of the grid, from Harry Senior and Andrew Murgatroyd in row 4, starting 7th and 8th. This ultra competitive field here at Snetterton. Douglas Christie and Matt Shepherd, who makes a welcome return, is starting 10th on the grid to round off the top 10 starters. 11th on the grid is Jeff Price. Alongside him is Gary Curtis on the 6th row of the grid. Row 7, we'll see. He's making his first appearance in the 310Rs this weekend after he's been campaigning most of this year in the 270Rs. He's going to start ahead of Henry Williams, who had a spin early on in race 1 but had to recover through. Jonathan Ems, who I know that Chris knows very well from having raced against him in his academy days. He's back in the Caterham, back in 16th place. Chris Welch and Stephen Metcalf then come next. Round off the 9th row of the grid, and then row 10 is Martin Gleach, and then Harry Landy, who had some problems in race 1. He was about a lap down, so he was having to try and recover from the very back of the grid. So cars off on the formation lap, weaving from side to side. There's quite a few clouds in the air and it looks quite overcast, but the circuit is, by the looks of things, pretty much currently totally dry, so hopefully this will get some proper high-speed racing. It's another 30-minute Caterham race, as it was for the 270Rs, and given how long these races are, these are along with the 270Rs, they are the longest Caterham races, as Lars Hoffman has a bit of a unique time-worn technique. Just throw the car sideways into Wilson hairpin and burn some rubber on the rear tyres. But these are the longest races, so in cars like these, which obviously now have got the full top package in the 310Rs, they've got 152 brake horsepower now, they've got better suspension, they've got better tyres, they've got a limited slip diff on them, and all the other upgrades that you've had through the Roadsport and 270R ranks. To have to handle this car for half an hour, how physical are these cars when you put them on the limit? Because we know that the car you drive regularly, which is the 7 UK Championship car, it's obviously quite grippy, quite fast, but obviously you're doing 20-minute races for half an hour in one of these that's has a not quite the same pace, but sort of strong pace nonetheless. How physical can they be for that length of time in racing them?
It can really depend on the race you have and the conditions. If it's a wet track, it's generally a lot lighter on your arms than it is in the dry. I would say the 310, you certainly feel exhausted at the end of a race, especially if it's been a close one where there's lots and lots of action, lots of concentration. But that's the same for any kind of form of motorsport. Comparing the car that I drive, the sort of top level with the slicks, that is a more physical experience, and that's why we've dropped to 20 minutes for those races, but we do 3 of them throughout the race weekend. But certainly you are going to be tired and drained at the end of a 30-minute 310R race, and they often are racing so close to each other that it's the concentration as well as the physicality of it. If you've never driven a race car or been in passenger seat of a race car, it's quite hard to comprehend how much you do get thrown around and the G-forces going through your body. So again, it's never an easy job. It's not just a matter of sitting down and turning a wheel. It's certainly a lot more to it, and Lars absolutely proving on that opening hairpin that he's got a limited slip diff installed on his 310R, which is one of the biggest upgrades, as well as that little power bump that you get. It makes this a really sort of superbly balanced car, and that limited slip diff just allows you to play around with the rear end, like I say, ably performed by Lars on that hairpin. So
looking back on yesterday, top 3 defensively were Pete Walters, Lewis Thompson and David Yates. We know how strong, of course, Pete and Lewis are, because Lewis, as we say, has won all but one of the races so far this season. Pete has been a former champion in Caterham before. These last couple of meetings, we've really, and particularly this year, particularly the last couple of weekends at Crofton here at Snetterton, David Yates really has started to show his proper pace now. He's been in the skate for a few years now. Now he's starting to come to prominence and starting to find his pace. Now he's managed to learn a few new tricks and get a bit more experience and get a feel for the car and the team that he's with. His chances were good yesterday, given the fact that he's now been on the podium, what is it, like 3 times in the last 3 races or so, in the last 3 or 4 races, how strong has his chance got to be, and how close has that first win got to be for him now?
Third place is a good place to start as any, isn't it?
It is,
you're right in that front battle. The other 2 have won, so it's about chance time that he had his opportunity to win a race as well. And I've been racing with Dave since about 2013 and shared breakfast with him this morning. I know that he's keen for that win and very, very thirsty to make that happen.
Well, fingers crossed that he can make it happen. He'll be certainly hoping to try and pick up the win. He was up there in contention. He was even at one point leading at one stage. He's daring enough to make it happen. Is it going to be a victory for Pete Walters, second of the year? Will Thompson get back in winning form, or will Yates & Co put a stop to that? The red lights are on for the second Bilstein Caterham 7 3-10R Championship race of the weekend here at Snetterton. They're underway in racing, and straight away it's Pete Walters who fires into the lead. It's Lewis Thompson tucks into second place. David Yates is in there for third. You might look for second on the inside. Hoffman looking on the wider line for fourth place. They're going with the right-hander. And Jeff Price number 38 with 22. Gary Curtis not too far away from him on his outside line. They've all got through Richie's corner safely, down towards Wilson. Brake lights ablaze as they head into the complex, and he's 3 by 3 at the apex. Look at that. There's contact at the further back. Harry Danny trying to make his way through. He clumped the back Gary Curtis as he was side by side with Giuseppe Fillet. Now after the Wilson hairpin, now they've all stopped giving themselves a fright, going 3 by 3 through the first couple of corners. It is now going to be, I think that's Walters. Then we've got now Hoffman up to second place. Great start for Lars Hoffman, the former double champion in Caterhams. And now we see there side by side make it 3 abreast. Where's Andrew Murgatroyd come from in 5th position? He's up down the outside into the hairpin. They're all trying to make moves here. Oh, concert! Oh no! It's Lars Hoffman, and unfortunately, David Yates involved in that as well. So they were going 3 by 3 in the first couple of corners. I guess in that case, just 2 or 3 into 1 just really wouldn't go.
Have to be Cadwell, won't it, for his dream comeback? I doubt he's going to make it all the way through the field at this point. You never know. You can have a safety car at night, and he has definitely got the bit between his teeth. There's some really tasty battles in the midfield, though, to look forward to. We've got Harry Landy there, who said earlier he had the exhaust problem yesterday. A lack of exhaust was the problem, and he is now in the midfield looking to make his way forward. We had a little clip there with Gary Curtis coming out, and we've got people like Chris Welch as well, all making really good, strong progress yesterday. So really strong midfield. Look out for that. Look out also for Matt Shepherd there in the yellow car. He had an issue with Lars Hoffman in that first race. He looked like he was going to be firmly part of that front battle until that issue coming into the Brundle Centre S's here. But yeah, has Harry Senior there dropping down a little bit at the moment. You know, you said that Murgatroyd had made his way up. Well, Harry Senior is one of the people that's lost out to him.
Top 2 as they kind of were for most of the race yesterday, that being Lewis Thompson ahead of Pete Walters. They turn their way out of corner. Shepherd. Let me see, I think that's on the first. Richie's into start.
Yeah, great. And Matt Shepherd's second time there into 6th place. So both of the people that watch out for them going forward. They're certainly making some good early progress there. James Wingfield, we're following at the top of his roll cage there, the bright yellow one in 3rd place, and he has got closely behind him. Is that Cook in his tail? And now Cook looking down the inside. We saw this quite a few. Oh, in fact, that's Walters going down the inside of Thompson there into the Agostini. We saw quite a lot of place swapping there in race 1, and it looks like that is going to be another favourite for the 310s going, you know, on this race too.
Saw just a flash in the background. I think that one of the cars that was trying to close in was definitely David Yates. Now he's only he's 1.8 seconds back on Martin Gleek across the start finish line at the end of that first lap. So he's showing us 13 seconds behind the leader. So that's not what at this stage. He's trying to the cars around him to try and make up the time push forwards.
We saw that 18 seconds, wasn't it? So by the end of this race, the sort of very front of we just caught that on camera. Gone and is
bollard stuck under his nose in his suspension, and he still won the race. So I think if there's hope for Dominic Mansberger, there's hope, regardless of the increased power, for David Yates if he can get through. Across the line they go to end of the second lap. It's still side by side for the lead between Thompson and Walters. Then Cook and Wingfield. Murgatroyd in there too, ahead of Matt Shepherd in sixth. Good to see Matt back on the grid and doing strong in sixth position. A little wide there for Thompson. He's now got all over him there, Pete Walters. As fastest lap of the race on that first proper flying lap has gone to Harry Senior, 2 minutes 9.835. Cracking lap on that from getting a bit of clear air, it looks like. And as for quickly looking at where's David Yates, so he hasn't actually lost too much though. He's actually only lost about a few tenths of a second, so the gap is still 14 seconds. What he needs to catch up to Giuseppe Fillet, who's about a couple of seconds. He's a couple of seconds faster, or he's nearly 3 seconds faster. If he catches him and starts to pick the cars off when they're quite in close proximity in the early stages, in theory, he should be able to make his way through the pack pretty quickly. Yeah,
without the nose cone, you definitely need that toe, so he'll want to get back in the pack to keep dragging forwards. You can see there are now gaps starting to appear in the rest of the field, and that's what will scupper a run through. If you start from the back of the field from the start lights, as Harry Landy is proving, you can actually make that move forward, and Landy up in 10th place, another place made up that lap. But yes, if you're starting from if you fall to the back via a spin or an issue, then yeah, it's a little bit more of a hard prospect. But there was Harry Landy just in the background behind Keogh there, and Senior just in front, who was the fastest lap of the race last time through, but everyone's much of muchness. There's a few 2-minute nights, including Matt Shepherd. Again, there's Matt Shepherd on the outside of Murgatroyd there, looking down into the bomber hole, as we still see Thompson holding on. Yesterday it was Walters in front, wasn't it, holding on most of the time ahead of Thompson, but today it looks like roles are reversed.
Oh, big twitch there. I think that was Douglas Christie there. He just about had to hold on for Harry Senior. It turned in together with Rob Keogh in tow, and also there is Harry Landy, we talked about him, in 10th position. Ooh, a little contact there as Harry Senior put a couple of words onto the grass just on the outside line, trying to look around the outside of Doug Christie. They turn in as a quartet. Christie, Senior, Keogh and Landy all together. Little flick of the curb through Murray's, and now with a slightly better exit, Harry Senior with a slightly quicker shift moves to the outside line and will be side by side and will get his nose in front by the time they get across the line. Thompson back in front now by 16 thousandths of a second. He sets a new fastest lap of the race in the process of a 2 minutes 9.460. Top 5 still as they were. This is the scrap course going on for 7th down to 10th. These are the final top 10 positions. And quick check in on David Yates' recovery. He's now past Chris Welch, and he's lapping him at 2 minute 10. So he's actually lapping quicker than everyone else in front of him up at the moment until P6. He's the 7th fastest man on track at the moment, and doing everything he needs to try and pick off those positions in the second half of the race.
Just seen Shepherd go ahead of Murgatroyd there, so he's moving and making his good progress back through the field, and Doug Christie absolutely brilliant to be sat just behind this. He's the one trying to bridge that gap up to the back of Murgatroyd's car there. So we've got this lead pack of 6 cars, and then followed by a second pack of about a similar number of cars, and it's Doug Christie looking to do that. Doug's made some great progress over the last couple of years, and it's good to see him putting that pressure on and always moving that car forward. Shepherd there looking, really businesslike actually, and he has made, really good progress from 10th on the grid to be fully involved in this pack. He's in 5th or 6th place at the moment, looking like he's going to, maybe compete. So watch out for him.
Yeah, Matt Shepherd in the bright yellow car with the black stripes in car number 80, as Chris rightfully pointed out. He's now got past Murgatroyd up into P5. Now we've got two of the Williams. Well, it's one of the Williams Motorsport cars. That's the Rob Keogh car, scrapping with Harry Landy. Into the complex comes the top 5-6 drivers. Still Thompson, Walters, it's Cook, Wingfield, Murgatroyd and Shepherd. Meanwhile, further the back, a couple more position swaps. We just see now that's a couple more places made up for David Yates. He's just got past Chris Welch. He's also passed as well
Giuseppe Fillet.
Yeah, he's also got past Metcalf as well. So he's got past 3 cars in one lap. He's gone from 17th to got past Welch, then Fillet, then Metcalf. He's now up to should be 15th position. His next target, Jonathan Ems, who's just a couple of seconds up the road in 14th place.
Yeah, here go across the top line. James Wingfield now in that 3rd place, getting that toe and setting that fastest lap to 8.9. Great lap time. And we got Walters still up the inside there. He's brave into that turn 1, isn't he? He carries a lot of speed there, yes, but it didn't count on the exit, so he's gone back down. He made up to 2nd. He's back down to 3rd again. Thompson with that little hint of a gap, and we've seen it in previous races that sometimes when he gets that gap he never relents, so I'm sure everyone's keen to make sure that doesn't extend out there, but Wingfield looking racy as well.
quite a rare oddity from today's action. The sun's now breaking out as we sit outside our commentary box window, so some slightly brighter weather despite some of the darker clouds overhead. It's certainly quite bright in terms of action at the front here, as Lewis Thompson is as Lewis Thompson does at the moment, which is pretty much just get out in front and try and dominate, which he's being allowed to at the moment by about a few tenths, but still got the chasing pack keeping him honest with Walters, Cook, and then we've got Wingfield, Shepherd and Murgatroyd in that order in that top six pack. The next four made up of Rob Keogh, then Doug Christie, who's supposed to been passed by Rob in sequence, although he had been before they'd just been repassed as they came across the line. And then you've got Landy and Senior rounding out the top 10. And David Yates is on his watch of his comeback. He's now up to 15th place. And he's only 3/4 of a second off Jonathan M, so he's not too far away. Then the issue he's got is that what he's got to most importantly do is bridge the next gap, which is another 5 seconds or so to catch up to essentially this sort of first half of the field, which the first car he'll come across on that is going to be Gary Curtis, who's battling away with Henry Williams for 12th and 13th place. The thump of the curve from James Wingfield, using all the curve and a bit more. Tends to do that quite often, but doing quite a solid job. Now there's the two cars which need to be caught now by David Yates, which is Gary Curtis. In front of him now is Jeff Price. So it looks like something that Henry Williams has got past Jeff Price, which means that's now Henry into 11th place. It's 12th and 13th for Price and Curtis respectively. So as that carries on, we get into 1/3 distance in the race, still about 19 minutes to go, and all action anyway everywhere you look.
Absolutely, and we see Harry Landy there now ahead of those two, Keogh and Harry Senior. So Harry Landy is also making his way back through the field, and we were tracking him from the rear, and he's now made his way up to 8th place. Well, so that's a great performance there. We've got Doug Christie just ahead of him. They're often on the same bit of track together, not always successfully, it must be said. Jeff Price is another driver this year who has been absolutely in and amongst the battle, whereas in previously we've seen him sort of maybe more towards the rear, but actually he's made a great step forward, and you often see that with a 310. A few more years of experience under your belt, and everything starts clicking, and certainly for Jeff Price this year that is the case. He's currently circulating in a 12th place there. As we come back in, still looking here at Doug Christie and Harry Landy, you can see that there's quite a big gap in front of them in order to bridge that gap before they turn into the Agostini hairpin there. So they've got a bit of work to do, and unfortunately when they're battling like this, Harry Senior back down the inside of Harry Landy there, they're going to struggle to make that gap up, but they will certainly be having great fun in this, and you can see Gary Curtis and Jeff Price there ready to join in as soon as they start battling.
So just under 18 minutes now left as the top two try to make that break, and Cook now trying to also go with them. It's possibly going to be, rather than a 6-pack, it could be 2 trios here battling over the top positions at this point. Down the back straight goes Matt Shepherd, looking to the inside line. He's going wheel to wheel with James Wingfield for 4th position. As now we still have Walters, Thompson, then Cook, and then this scrap for 4th, 5th and 6th as it turns its way through Brundle, through Nelson. We've got the 3 kind of rather sort of darker coloured cars, and the 3 kind of more brightly coloured cars being the red or the orangey red and yellow of James Wingfield, the twitchy yellow Caterham of Matt Shepherd, and the blue and yellow of Andrew Murgatroyd as they come through Coram once more.
It's great to see this year, Scott. So many of the championships running, the lead contenders have all been different colours, and that's it makes our job easier for one. Yeah. But equally, it's nice to see. You've given free rein to describe your personality on your car however you like, and it's really good to see the drivers doing that.
There have been some great Caterham liveries over the years, not just simple colour schemes, but also been put in imagery and kind of proper different liveries, that sort of thing. It's been fantastic to see some of the variation, different things. I think Daniel House's was a great one that was kind of black and white with the kind of red sort of different triangles and different shapes and all sorts of things. It was fantastic to see. What was also fantastic to see is that this league battle that continues on between Pete Walters and Lewis Thompson, with Harry Cook now just latching onto it, but they've all got to be careful whether or not James Wingfield can go with them, because immediately he's decided to drop this battle that's going on between Shepherd and Murgatroyd. It's been going on for pretty much since the start of the race, and he wants to make it now a leading quartet rather than a trio. He's trying to go with Harry Cook, who in turn is trying to grab a toe from either of these 2 cars as they go side by side, back under brakes into Agostini. Walters has the inside line. Thompson manages to slot back in behind him, and it's back rolls reverse once more. So top 6 others they were, and that's for David Yates. Having a quick look at his check-in. Now he has got the gap down to less than 2 seconds between himself and Gary Curtis. It's not too far away in 14th position. He's got past Jonathan Ems, And now, of course, his next target is to catch up to that 12th and 13th pack. Meanwhile, the other man that got caught up by that incident, whether it was anyone else or not, Lars Hoffman, not really making that much progress. Back down in 18th place. And he seems to be one of those. He's been this season where if he's been up near the front pack in amongst the group when he's racing with them, his pace is there. But when he's kind of caught on his own, it seems to have just been lacking a bit so far this year for whatever reason.
I think he's just had an awful lot of bad luck this year. It's certainly not been the smoothest of years. He's, it takes sometimes a bit of luck to run a championship. He's won, multiple championships in the past, so he has clearly got the talent and the ability. He just hasn't been able to show it. And when he has been up the front, he has been absolutely involved. But even we saw yesterday, his car came away with a few wings missing and a nose cone dented and something stuck under the rear tyre. So he's certainly been involved in a lot of the action, hasn't he?
It's certainly been an eventful year of Caterham racing across the board, I think, with all sorts of action going on for drivers. Top 6 now heads down the pit straight as we've just hit the halfway points in the race. 15 minutes down, 15 minutes still to go. Black and white flag going out for somebody for track limits, I'm sure. James Wingfield now puts the fastest lap of the race in 2 minute 8.686, and he's also going for second place on the inside of Lewis Thompson. Thompson chops off any opportunity. Holds on to the place for the time being.
Keogh and Landy were the track limits numbers that we've got given to us so far.
So Rob Keogh and Harry Landy then getting warnings for track limits. If they keep on transgressing, they'll get time penalties, as we've seen throughout the weekend in that essence. Here further back, we've got Giuseppe Fillet battling with Jonathan Ems, and then just behind them, Lars Hoffman, who's trying to make progress, and now he's looking around the outside of Chris Welch. But Chris is holding firm on the inside line, not allowing him to go around the outside, and so I think, okay, you're going to make it difficult to play that game. Up the inside we go this time then. Brakes that a little bit later. You see he's just pumping the brakes, trying to get the car stopped without locking the wheels. He wants to brake as late as possible without possibly locking it inside front and going straight on. And the result of that was he made it through. So he's up the inside line and leaks either by quite a margin, although I'm presuming that, I think he lost that left rear wing anyway, a while back anyway. So up now into what should be 17th place at that point. So he'll now try and chase after Jonathan Ems.
There are absolutely no ABS or any driver aids for that matter on these cars. So cadence braking was what we were seeing there, where you would kind of do your own ABS action using the brake pedal, and that's what we saw heavily braking down in the inside of that. So if you start feeling your front wheels locking up, then you will gently lift off the brake pedal again to do that, as we see side-by-side action again. Bit of side draft squeeze there from Thompson. Actually, that maintains his lead as he swoops around the outside of Walters, and they make that nice, all these front drivers making some really good, showing all the lines as they should be done, and that outside sweep. And Harry Landy there trying to go around the outside, but didn't quite work with Doug Christie. Like I said, these two are off on track often together. Let's hold our breath. But Harry Senior looking menacing there behind, following along as well.
Harry Landy doing a grand job, of course, up in 9th position. Just try, well, he's put a couple more spots than that because he's now behind Doug Christie in there too, and Harry Senior's a bit further just behind him as well. So they turn in. This is now going to be for 7th, 8th, and 9th. It is now Christie 7th. Landy 8th and Senior back in 9th now as they turn in through Henry Williams in 10th. Lewis Thompson then puts the fastest lap of the race in 2 minutes 8.585. He's loaded by another 10th now, as Walters led across the line that time by 0.134 of a second. Here comes the next group, 7th backwards, as looks like there it was Landy getting a push from Harry Senior, who in turn is now just trying to work his way through, bumps onto the curb on the inside line, now looks up the inside. Here comes Henry Williams and his teammate behind him, which is Rob Keogh. So two of the Williams Motorsport cars getting into the mix now, possibly working in tandem. Through the hairpin they go. That was almost a little bit of collision there between Williams and Keogh, I think. They were just trying to stick his nose up the inside and probably didn't realise he was that close and had to quickly back out of it just before they put the power down on the exit of the hairpin.
It's always a nervous time coming into a hairpin like that. It's an absolute dead stop from a quite high speed. Turn one around there, Richard's Harry Landy shoving it down the inside there. Looks like he's got it stopped. Doug Christie outbraked himself, and actually Harry Landy sort of urged him into that, didn't he? And unfortunately, Doug then outbraked himself, lost the rear end, and that was it, car round.
He was essentially goading him into a late braking match. Come on then, how late can you brake? And eventually he caught him out. So Doug Christie unfortunately loses the braking duel, quite literally, because he lost the back end of the car and around he went. So he'll continue on, but now outside the top 10, unfortunately, as we see Harry Landy, who is probably feeling a bit slightly smug with himself for that, thinking, right, that's another one I've got over him. So there's Rob Keogh, who's doing a decent job. Of course, he's a former Ginetta race, who's settled quite seamlessly into Caterham race since he started. He had a decent first weekend, getting himself a 4th and a 3rd place in the 270Rs at the season opener at Donington Park, and he adapted pretty quickly after a year away of racing. Before that, of course, he's been quite a prominent Ginetta driver as well, and done a pretty decent job. But came into Caterham's and I think remarked that it was nothing like anything else, and certainly proven that you have to be quite required for race it. Not necessarily just race a Caterham, but race it at quite a high level enough to be able to be a consistently quick driver. So these drivers are like nothing else in terms of these drivers. I've always figured Caterhams to be like the Formula Ford of sports cars. They're very much in the same context of Formula Fords do. They teach car control, they teach racing purely on mechanical grip, on setting up a car upon mechanical setup and using those parameters. Narrow tyres, Ford engines, very, very close wheel-to-wheel racing with lots of slipstreaming. These cars are fantastic to teach the next generation of, let's say, sports cars or GT drivers, etc., or even touring car drivers, what it's like to handle a car just a mechanical grip, and that's not the way to do it, with Harry Cook clattering into the side of Matt Shepherd. This now gives the full advantage to Andrew Murgatroyd, who picks off one spot, tried to go for two, but Shepherd immediately got his foot down and managed to get in front. But all action stations going on for fourth down to sixth, as everyone wants to be all three cars wanted to get to the apex first, all went for the apex at the same time, and it all ended in exactly the way we expected it to.
Cook just had to actually get on the anchors a little bit harder than he was expecting as he was approaching, because the gap that he was going into was disappearing, and unfortunately collected Matt Shepherd a little bit, but all's well in love and war. He's actually got away, and Murgatroyd now looking, in fact, Matt might have a problem there. He's lost a lot of speed and momentum, so maybe he has got an issue on that rear wheel, but it certainly looked like it got away from it initially. It looks like his exhaust might be hanging off there, so he's probably lost some power because of that. But yeah, unfortunately, Harry Cook just lost the rear of the car, and he did as much as he could to try and keep it under control. Did a good job as it happened, but unfortunately the damage had already been done at that point. Matt Shepherd may be getting back on the pace, so maybe not quite as dramatic as we said. But yeah, these drivers all drive on the edge all the time, and they learn how to drive very closely. And the other thing about Caterham drivers is because they come through the Academy Series, most of them, they're all kind of very versed, and they're very good at racing Caterham cars. And so whenever someone comes in from an outside championship, it is quite surprising to them quite often how hard and how on the edge these drivers push these cars every single lap of every single race.
Meanwhile, we almost forgot a little bit about this man, in fact, which is David Yates. Now, he's been making some silent progress a little bit. He's now worked his way past, but get this, Harry Landy and Rob Keogh and Henry Williams, and he's now found himself into 7th place. So he's now literally the leader of the next pack. Now, all right, granted, the next gap is 12 seconds, which I think is possibly a bit too insurmountable even for him. But again, this is David Yates we're talking about. It's not impossible, but you mean you have to go at 2 seconds a lap quicker than everyone else to catch them, which I don't quite think is going to happen, given that his last lap was 2 minutes 9.061. So arguably, actually, look at it, he is actually the fastest man on track. He's actually lapping in clear air quicker than anyone else. Only problem is he's not looking quick enough, I don't think, to bring that gap in even further. In fact, his last lap was 2 minutes 9.5. So again, he's still lapping quicker than anyone else, but just not quick enough, and it's kind of not close, and not a close enough gap of the cars in front to make that take full advantage of that. But still, to charge back to 7th and to be the fastest man on track right now, that's one heck of an achievement.
Definitely a case of what could have been, I think, for David. I think at the moment he'd be happy just to break away from this lot so he can actually solidify that top 7, because until you break away, as we've seen before, it's very much not a certainty that you're going to do it. But I can't pace he's got there. So again, yeah, what could have been, and it's a shame he wasn't in that lead battle, sort of fighting it out with the others.
I think it's all the extra cooling he's got on that engine now. I think that's probably doing something. Anyway, back to the battle for 7th to 10th. So now it's essentially everyone's got to chase David Yates rather than them chasing him for the brief moment of time that happened. Speaking of chasing, there's Thompson still chasing Walters, and then you've got Wingfield being chased by Cook and then being chased by Murgatroyd, as Matt Shepherd's also dropped back by about 1.2 seconds now, so he's a little bit out of contention for a top 5 spot unless he can find some pace in the last 7 minutes or so. Side by side again, where have we seen this before between these two? Up into the left-hander at the complex at Brundle, into Nelson. Now back on the power again. These two, even though they are main championship rivals, they're kind of sort of silently working together a little bit to make sure, right, let's go and have our own private battle for the battle over victory, and then we can kind of, but until we do that, let's work together a little bit, pull away, then we've got a bit more of an assured gap that we can use in order to make sure that we to the final rounds at Capel Park. There's that scrap going on for 7th down to 10th. Back to our leaders as they come out of Murray's. And now to the pit straight once more to complete lap 11. There are still 6.25 minutes to go, and it's still Pete Walters in front as he sweeps the pit wall to try and get the shortest possible run to Ritchie's, with Lewis Thompson following all the way as they head on to lap 12, with just now 6 minutes to go in this second 310R race.
James Wingfield has been so often in this lead battle, hasn't he? And unfortunately, he's just tailed off a little bit towards the middle phase of this race, as he's just gone a bit wide out of there, out of Riches, which might cost him another place there. But we've got Walters going down again the inside. So this lead battle, whilst we're saying maybe they've got a bit of a sort of stalemate while they try and make this gap happen, coming into the final 5 minutes, all that goes out the window. And we're looking again at Doug Christie here, who obviously still have that spin. He's now sitting back in 12th place. So you know, again, disappointing for him. He was been showing such good progress up into that top 10. It would have been good to see that kind of solidified. Again, side by side. When are we not saying that? Every single corner at the moment, they are choosing to go side by side.
It's a proper out-and-out duel between these two, and actually not just for the race win, but to make sure they keep close to the championship, because of course it's been quite a back-and-forth battle. But even though Lewis Thompson essentially started when he first did the second round, essentially started on the back foot, having lost a round's worth of points. The fact that he managed to come back and pretty much go through and keep on taking race win after race win after race win to pretty much take the fight and get all the way back into a point where genuinely on drop scores he is absolutely in championship contention now. It's pretty astonishing. And now as he heads down the back straight, he's looking for that move once again side by side, just hovering around, just going as close as he dares. They're almost touching wheels. And this time now Walters decides, right, I've had my fun, now to back in and get the slipstream. And this time it's now my turn to chase him rather than him to chase me.
Very bit of gentle sort of pushing towards the inside there. Obviously the car with the momentum actually slip back by the time Nurgle now looking like he might also fall behind Harry Cook as well. But yeah, just a little bit of gentle pushing on the straight there, with Lewis sort of pushing across on Pete Walters. With the car with momentum, as soon as you're ahead, you actually have the right then to position your car because the other car's behind you at that point. So we did see some of that, and it was it's kind of telling that we're down to 4 minutes to go. They're still fighting hammer and tongs, whilst you know, it doesn't necessarily look at it. It looks all smooth and calm from the outside, but I urge you to have a look at Thompson's arms, which we can see because he runs with half doors, and he's certainly working away at that wheel right now. So,
just the 4 minutes to go now. Lap 13 in this Bilstein Caterham 7-3-10R Championship race. Still the top two of the championship going at it now for the race win. Pete Walters has won from this weekend. Every single other race win that has been a race that Lewis Thompson has entered, he's won, apart from yesterday. So now have to come back through Palmer again and look for an opportunity to get through. Slightly more distant camera view there as they go down the short straight.
Could just start seeing the toe coming in there, couldn't you? Just as we cut away into this head-on shot, and that's what gives you that momentum. But Pete Walters positioning his car up the inside there, not giving Lewis Thompson anywhere to go other than the outside, and then he's got a nice, comfortable run out that field. Oftentimes, there's times that look frantic from the outside from a spectator point of view, but in the car you actually feel pretty calm because he knows exactly where the car is. He's positioned his opponent exactly where he wants, and he's in control of that situation at that point.
Certainly both in control of the top two positions at this time. And they're looking to try and extend that lead. They're on the penultimate lap of the race. They'll get one more lap next time by. So Lewis is grabbing another gear as he comes out of the right-hander at Williams onto the Bentley straight and take advantage of that toe. And of course, they've now got to realise that as they're into the closing stage of the last lap and a half of the race, rather than start pulling away a bit more, they're going to have to start battling now for the victory and go for the fact that it's probably going to be the last chance to do so. So I think Lewis Thompson has now decided, I'm going to lead them on to the final lap, and now it's going to be game on between himself and Pete for the victory. There's Andrew Murgatroyd, who's arguably come from nowhere, in fact. He's managed to charge himself from 5th up to 3rd now, and there's also David Yates in 7th place. He has pulled away and managed to solidify that 7th place. For 8th, 9th and 10th, we've got Landy, Williams and Keogh as they turn in through the right-hander. And now onto the straight towards the bomb hole. And now it's to come onto the straight to start the last lap of the race. So the last lap begins now as the top two go across the line. And there it is. They're getting the encouragement on the pit wall. Go after them. See if we can pick up a couple more points or so. But now pretty much the slugfest is on between Lewis Thompson and Pete Walters. Two heavyweights of the championship trying to pick up a race victory. Thompson's in front, but Walters will push him all the way because he's the one with the more experience, having won a championship before. As for 3rd, down the outside, look, Matt Shepherd. Andrew Murgatroyd's all crossed up, but manages to rotate the car enough to hold on to the place. Now it brings Harry Cook back into the mix now to come up towards the left-hander at Palmer.
Murgatroyd actually sort of sat there early doors, didn't he? And he just sat there waiting for the race to develop in front of him. And as soon as Matt Shepherd had his issue, and I could hear when he went by the commentary box, he's definitely lost his exhaust. But as soon as that happened, he pounced and actually made this move. Wingfield dropped back, and Murgatroyd now looks dead set for that third, doesn't he?
He absolutely does. And well, I see you say dead set for the third because he has still got Wingfield and on top of that, Hank Van Cook snapping at his heels in the last half a lap or so. So he's in the mix. I think the one thing certain is one of those three will be third place. Which one of the three we're still going to work out. Out to Williams, onto the Bentley straight for the final time. Probably one of the last chances that Pete Walters will have to pick up another win. Now Murgatroyd, Wingfield and Cook make their way onto the back straight one last time. Is there any chance for Wingfield to get himself close enough to make a move? Meanwhile, side by side for Willie, here comes Pete Walters round the outside. Let's have a look into Brundle. Can't make that stick. Nelson, he slots in behind Lewis Thompson. Now he's possibly resigning himself. Maybe set himself up for a run down the pit straight to make a move. Meanwhile, for third, the final podium spot currently now resides in Wingfield. Murgatroyd goes back to the inside, has a look, pulls himself quite far alongside, bumps the curb on the inside and slightly just backs out of it, but Wingfield holds strong on the outside line. Meanwhile, Thompson holds the lead, but how long will he hold it for? Here comes Walters. He's close as he needs to be. Out the final corner, he will be in the slipstream. It's going to be a photo finish. Here we go. Get the cameras out, ladies and gents. This is going to be it. Walters or Thompson. Who's it going to be? Walters darts out. Has he pulled out too late? Is it going to be enough? Side by side across the line. Walters gets his nose in front and pinches the win. It's a double victory for Pete Walters. Walters wins by 0.057 of a second. And for third, cross the line. And it goes to Wingfield by 5/1000 of a second, even closer for third than it was for the win. Brilliant stuff. So Walters wins, Thompson second, Wingfield, Murgatroyd and Cook, Shepherd in sixth place, David Yates what could have been for seventh, then eighth, side by side for ninth, and it goes to Henry Williams and Rob Keogh, and that's by the slightly more gargantuan margin of 0.4 of a second between the two of them. So great stuff for them towards the end. Doug Christie 11th, Jeff Price is 12th. And then it's the last Hoffman who recovers to 13th ahead of Gary Curtis. Another side-by-side finish. They were between their 53/1000 of a second for 13th and 14th place. And then it's Fillet, Jonathan Ems, and then Metcalf, Welch, Gleach, and then Harry Senior we lost towards the end as well. Harry Senior pitted, so whatever the issue was for Harry, that's a shame. But unfortunately, unable to make it to the flag, I'm afraid. So he loses out on championship points for that. So who knows? Who knew that someone other than Lewis Thompson could win a race in a race that Lewis entered in? So Pete Walters then picks up both victories, and that will keep him well, as I'm sure, certainly in the title hunt going to the last couple of rounds in a couple of weeks at Cadwell Park.
Walters has been absolutely rapid all weekend. We saw a spectacular qualification lap, which looked, I think quite a lot quicker than anyone else out there, and he's proved in the races that he can manage that situation as well. He's sort of doggedly stayed near the front of the entirety of an hour's racing in Caterham, which is just unheard of. But Thompson's been his shadow every single corner here, and again, it wasn't clear he was leading coming out that final corner. And yesterday we saw that it didn't work coming up the pit straight, but today Pete Walters made that work for him. So yeah, good. Absolutely. I mean, he's going to love Snetterton this year, and it'll suddenly become his favourite track, I'm sure. Thompson, absolutely though, 2 second places is that's the best of the rest of the rest, isn't it? So still looks like it's going to come down to this last championship, and it's just the consistency of all the front runners is great to see in the 310 championship. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Across the line will come the last couple of runs that we're waiting for to finish the race. Martin Gleach, I think, is the one of the last few cars, and then Harry Senior, of course, was in the pit lane a few laps ago with an issue, so out of the race he went, on only completing 8 laps and retiring a lap 9. So another typical Caterham photo finish. Pete Walters beats Lewis Thompson to the line by 57,000 of a second, but while Lewis Thompson did crucially though get the fastest lap of the race as well, so he keeps on to that in lap 8. Andrew Murgatroyd I did think his nose was in front, so Andrew Murgatroyd does in fact get the third place. It switched around on the timing screen via the trackside camera by 1/1000 of a second for Wingfield 4th, but it's Cook in 5th, Shepherd 6th, David Yates recovers after his lap 1 incident to 7th. 10th then it's Christie, Price, Hoffman, Curtis, Fillet, Ems, Metcalf, Welch and Gleach, and Harry Senior was the only one that couldn't finish the race in the pit lane. That's it for the Caterhams for the moment. One more race for them to come up, but stay tuned as we head down to Chris Buxton for our next race, our third and final race of the weekend for the Modified Ford Series.
doing?
Good.
How's your day?
Good.
Scoring goals? everybody, how you doing?
Good.
How's your day?
Good.
Scored any goals? Oh.
Welcome back to a now sunny Snetterton. We've had both ends of the weather spectrum throughout the weekend, and it is now time for the Caterham Academy Cars to come out again. The LoveCars Caterham Academy Autumn Trophy. It's a non-championship event decided by the second fastest laps by every competitor from both the white and green groups, top of which is Mr. Jiddix. We meet again, Freddie.
Yeah, we do. Not quite the result we wanted this morning, so we've got another race to try and make it better.
Absolutely. So proving that so you're representing the green group, do you feel that you're kind of top of the tree, king of the crop?
We'll find out in a minute.
Good man. So even though it's a non-championship event, would it be fair to say that the right foot's still quite as heavy as it normally is?
Yeah, even more so.
Good man. Best of luck, Freddie. Hopefully, enjoy the race. I love this the pink patchwork. It's almost like a cartoon plasterwork going on the number 66. Number 33, also from green, is Jeff Newman. Well, familiar faces and some new names for you to pit your mighty machine against.
I don't know about mighty, but yeah, I'm looking forward to mingling with White Group. Haven't played with them before, so let's just go out and have some lovely fun.
Now, we were talking before we came on air that the green group has typically been that little bit quicker, but you've got the likes of Harry George, who was the championship contender for the white groups. Looking forward to it, cautious, what's the thought?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a nice even race with Harry, so let's see how we get on.
Best of luck, good sir. As you can hear, the gate is open, the cars are heading on track. Harry George is top of the white group for the Caterham Academies. We'll see how they get on. Throwing back now to Scott Wood.
Trophy to potentially do one last time. It's essentially like what I call the graduation race. They've won their championships. Now to say one last time goodbye to Academy, one last time in these specification cars before they all move out. It's always a special race, isn't it?
I think you said the word bragging rights there, and I think that's probably more to the point. They certainly, everyone wants to get as much racing as they can done. We haven't got all the cars out here for this. It is it's an optional race. You don't have to take part. It's not part of the championship. But certainly this is the first time we get to see the white group and the green group come and join together into one grid. So you can see we've got a nice strong number of cars here. We've got Freddie Chiddicks and Jeff Newman. So we saw them having their championship battle going absolutely dramatic down to the line. And so I'm sure Chiddicks will be looking to for a bit of redemption there. But equally, yeah, we've got other white group cars all in the mix as well, including Harry George, who we also saw in that sort of championship battle earlier on. We haven't got Charlie Lower, and he's heading off a bit early today, so he hasn't been able to take on this race. But yes, it's exciting for us watching, as well as I'm sure those drivers, to get a racing and maybe a flavour for that Roadsport feel, which we're going to get next year.
And of course, you've been this whole route before, so this is one of the things that you've experienced before in your past. What do you remember your course and trophy race, whether it was good or bad? It's that kind of whole thing in terms of, I've done my championship now, this is probably a chance to just enjoy myself with the friends I've made, just a casual race, nothing else on mind apart from simply just going for it and getting the bragging rights of being the fastest Academy driver.
Scott, it absolutely matters. You want to go and win it. You absolutely want to go and give a good performance, and it really does think about Roadsport. But I think I ended up coming fourth. It was really mixed conditions for our autumn trophy race, so it was really tricky under wheels there. But it was, I remember it was a distant fourth, so it was actually quite an empty race. But in our day, again talking in the older days, we used to have 15-minute Academy races, and the autumn trophy was actually a 20-minute race, so it's our first chance to get a feel for that 20 minutes. But as the package develops and as the drivers sort of feedback on what they want out of this initial racing season they do with the Academy, Caterham have sort of extended that to be a 20-minute race for them all through the season. And in fact, today, they've actually got 3 races this season, and we're the only the Caterham 7 UK Championship, the only ones that get 3 races in a race weekend. So they've got plenty of racing going on. Great stuff, and this should be an amazing way for them to essentially, in a wonderful way, say goodbye to years in Caterham Academy. So I think because you had the grid put together quite late, because of course it was being put together by, we believe, either second fastest times in qualifying or possibly fastest lap times in the race. Either way, we can give you the grid, at least we can read it to you verbally, because we don't have the grid graphic for it because it's been come to us too late. But we'll give you the grid and have it lined up. Remember, this is based on either fastest lap times that were from the fastest laps throughout their races that they've had today, or their second fastest times in qualifying combined together. So, from the top, this is how the final 2021 Academy race of the season, the Autumn Trophy, lines up with both white and green group cars together on the grid. And it lines up as follows. Freddie Chiddicks and Jeff Newman on the front row of the grid together, where we've seen that before. Both the green group contenders on the front row. Chiddicks on pole, Newman alongside him. Then it's Harry George, who was one of the main championship contenders in the white group. He starts third alongside Gareth Lucas in the front
on the second row of the grid. Mark Jones and Theo Theata then come next on row 3, followed by Chris Fraser and Mark Kendall, then Robert Domain and Giles Perry to round out the top 10. It's then Neil Perry and Ian Harris, Benja Headley and Mike Banton, Rocco Ainscoe and Louis Deason make up the 8th row of the grid. From Augustin Sayrak, Lyndon Arnold, then Ray Radford and Chris Roberts who round out the top 20. Then it's Richard Percy, Ian Summers, Ida Lowe, John Vincent and Ian Davis who round out the 25 car grid. For this final race of the year for Caterham Academy, it's almost a bit of a sombre mood in terms of saying, you know, it's their Academy year, but of course at the same time it's excitement. It's also, for some people, probably a bit of relief because it's been quite a long season. For these guys, this has been the last fine little, hopefully, sweet little memory to just take away from 2021 before they then move up to arguably anywhere they want, which is moving on as far as going straight into 270 or even 310Rs if they really wanted to. So for them it's really a case of just to enjoy one last time in the car of the specification before they then decide to either move on or to go to another step or to do anything else in their racing career. It's one nice little way to just to kind of wrap everything up after a great year.
And if ever anyone's watching, sat on their sofa at home thinking, how do I get involved? Well, head over to the Caterham Motorsport website or Caterham Cars website and you can find all details about how you can go and buy your own Academy car. Comes with a full package of racing. You've seen everything that we've sort of been on offer today. Everything is included, so you buy the car, but you get the race package as part of.
Yeah, I think it's just $5 shy of 30 grand, I think, for the whole package this time by, and you get essentially, as you say, everything, the race car, all your race entry, everything else, and to enter it, you have to be a complete novice driver, so you can't have ever held any kind of racing or competition license ever, and then you go through, you get the entire Caterham Academy gets split off into their 2 groups, but then all together in each of their groups do a handling day, a test day, setup days, track days to get used to the car and racing it. Then they'll do the competitive sprint to start the season where there are championship points available towards their main total, and then they'll go ahead and do their races all towards the end of the season. So everyone lined up for one last time in the Caterham Academy. Time to throw the hats into the air and graduate in style. The special Caterham Academy Autumn Trophy race all set to get underway here. It is Chiddix and Newman, just as it was earlier on for the Green Group title. Who's going to win the sprint down towards turn 1 for the final time in Caterham Academy for 2021? Well, it's a good start for Newman from the pole position time as they charge away from the first time. Now, some of these drivers won't have raced against each other at all ever in the season at all, so it's going to be quite tentative to feed each other out into turn 1. But it's Newman who leads. Chiddix in second place. Jones is there in third place. Benja Headley on the exit and almost gets taken by Mark Kendall. Ian Harris was up there as well, making a good start from the middle of the pack as well. But into the complex for the first time, into the hairpin, and it's Newman who leads, Chiddix second. It's then Mark Jones in third, and on the outside line there was Harry George battling over Gareth Lucas. So just about everyone's got through unscathed here, so it's good to see. But our final 20 minutes of racing for the Caterham Academy guys this year all started cleanly. Now pretty much it's just seconds out. Have at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And advantage group green at the moment. So with Chiddix and Newman absolutely taking off where they left off in their championship battle. Newman here up the inside, a little bit of locking up there from other drivers. You do get to learn your competitors and your fellow drivers that sort of around you on track at the time. So you're right, you don't know what the sort of attitude of the cars are going to be going into this race, where a lot of the people around you, you're just not going to even recognise their car.
Yeah, so white group drivers will encounter green group drivers competitively in this manner for the first time, and these cars have collectively raced on the same track together, not in the same race together. It's because they did also combine onto one grid, so that white and green group cars race within themselves on one grid to get collectively on the silver circuit. Given the length of the circuit, they put all the green and white group cars together, and of course their own drivers, the drivers in their own group for respective points positions in order to make sure they can pick up what they needed. So it heads its way into Brundle and Nelson for the first time. Chiddix leads, Newman then it's Jones, followed by Harry George, Gareth Lucas and Mark Kendall. Kendall tries to squeeze up the outside of Gareth Lucas into the right hand at the bomb hole on the outside line. And there's Isla Lowe having a scrap there with Ian Beddis. That's over position towards the back of the field. So they're having a good scrap of their own. Down towards the bomb hole. Now it's Chiddix who now leads us. Chiddix has taken over the lead. So he managed to make the move. It must have been down the back straight because, of course, we saw for a while there it was Newman who was in the front, but Chiddix managed to work his way around. And for losing out on the championship, I think there's only one thing on. That's a bit of revenge. He missed out on the championship. He wants to take the bragging rights this next year and take the victory in the Autumn Trophy to Roadsport for 2022, saying, well, I won my last race of the year, so let's see what you got, Jeff.
He lost the championship by a lap, a lap of 2/10 slightly slower, didn't he? So yes, absolutely, he'd be looking to put that back, put that right. But they're absolutely going at it. We've got Harry George there, who's not got Charlie Lower in this actual race, so he's not got the person there, but he's moved himself back into third place as we've got Jones there just losing out a place going into the hairpin. But yeah, so absolutely brilliant. So we got 2 classes showing up on our side screen there. I think that's relevant.
Well, that's interesting because there aren't actually classes shown, but it still shows positioning class first, second, and third. So they have removed the classes, but we can give us a reminder of which group, because we know which group, which drivers in which group. We can essentially give us a bit of a small insight and cheekily saying essentially which group is technically performing better in this race than the collective. And so far, at the moment, in fact, there we go on the left-hand side. That's the collective run, but you can't see the positions first, second, third in class, etc. We can on our timing screen. So at the moment, it is a green group. 1, 2, 3 in inverted commas. The next one in 4th place is the top white group car, which is Harry George. But I'm certain if Charlie Lower was in here, he'd have his elbows out in this front pack as well.
Yeah, and you can bet your bottom dollar that they're trying to shuffle those orders as we go. But Chiddick's there sort of giving himself a little bit of a gap. But we've got Harry George there looking menacing in 3rd place, looking like he wants to make sure the Group I honours are also represented here.
There goes Neil Perry in car number 50. He's on the back of Giles Perry. So the 2 Perry drivers so you almost say it's kind of, I was going to make the joke of Perry because it's obviously 11th, 12th place, but I'll just concentrate on the race now. Anyway, 1st down to 5th is going to be Chiddick, Newman, Jones, George and Kendall. But Kendall's now been overhauled by Mark. Well, Jones is there. Kendall's right behind. So the 2 green cars getting into the mix. Further back, some more battles going on. And again, drivers just feeling out the new ones, thinking, oh, I haven't raced against you before. How are you under brakes? Or how are you when you turn in? Are you going to see me when I turn in? So again, there's more learning going here because they're racing against drivers who they haven't come across. Someone else went across the grass up at Rundle and Nelson, cutting the S's section. So this is very much, it almost feels a little bit like in some cases going back to their first ever race because they're kind of going against drivers they've never actually raced against before. So now they're kind of up against someone they're not sure about and going, how's he going to react when I turn in? How's he going to react when I go for a move? How's he going to react when I go later on the brakes? They've got to try and find that out on the fly here in these next sort of 15-20 minutes for drivers that they haven't ever come across before on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, some drivers do tend to turn across to the front of your car a bit more viciously than others, and you certainly learn which ones are like kicking mules. But as we got sort of everything's closing up, Harry George there set the fastest lap on that last lap round. So he, even though he's in 3rd place, he did close that gap down entirely. So it's all closed up at the front again, with Chiddick still out in front going over the line, with Newman following behind, but George looking like he's got a bit of momentum going on.
Certainly he does. Fastest lap of the race for Harry George, 2 minutes 17.062. So he's now worked his way into 3rd place, and he's now on the back of Jeff Newman. Jeff looks across and says, "Oh, hello, who are you? I've never come across you before." So up to down the outside line, doesn't expect to see Harry George around there. So these 2 now are going to go into combat whilst Freddie Chiddick holds on to the leads. They come out of the final corner. Mark Jones is having a strong race so far in the early stage. He's up to 4th, so 4th place for him, and 3rd out of the green group drivers. Now down towards Argy's they go, and Harry George goes on the attack. He looks that wider line, tries to focus, and background contact between 2 cars. Gareth Lucas is one of them, Mark Kendall's the other, and they were battling over 5th and 6th positions. So I think both of them didn't want to give up didn't want to work for the same piece of tarmac into Hamilton, didn't want to give up, and that's been the end result.
We said earlier on, Hamilton's not really the place to do that. There's also a tyre barrier and all sorts. It looks like there's a bit of steam coming out of Kendall's car, so I hope he actually comes to a stop, because you don't want to lose all your coolant and then carry on driving. That's not a good way to end your race. The battle coming down here through Brundle and Senna. So Chiddick's still out there, Newman still resisting the pressure behind from George, but George and Jones, they're absolutely putting that pressure on Newman, and he's got more to think about than the battle just in front of him now. He's got to actually look in his mirrors constantly as well.
So it's headed through the complex for the leaders coming out of Brundle and Nelson. Looking back further back, another battle we've got going on here. This is between, catch clips of the numbers. There was number 19 was in there. That looks like it was Chris Roberts. I think with John Vincent not too far behind him. Lyndon Arlen was around that battle too. So we've got a definitive top 4 now. Chiddick, Newman, George and Jones as they come now onto the pit straight again. This is to complete lap 3. Any new fastest laps of the race? None from anyone there. The best lap out of the 4 was Mark Jones with a 2:17.275. He was about 2/10 quicker on that lap as they come through the right-hander. Foot to the floor. Clip of the inside curve there. A little bit out of shape, Mark Jones, but he got enough momentum to swing himself into the mix here. It's almost 3 abreast. He shoots the gap between George and Newman into the hairpin. does make it into third place. That was pretty bold stuff. Mark Jones, so he clipped the curb on the inside, carried the speed through the corner, and then managed to shoot up the inside and saw a gap and thought, that'll work. I'll go through that.
Those gaps don't always maintain, but really good racing to see them all going 3 abreast into the hairpin there. Like the more experienced championships, all made that work on the opening laps, and they're showing that they can do that through these fields as well. So yeah, really tasty propositions for this race, but also next year.
Again, this gives us small glimpses of what we might see in next year's Roadsport Championship. And already, I'm liking the signs at the moment, particularly with the front 4 guys. So already, Chiddix, Jones, George, and Chiddix, Newman, George, and Jones at the front, with Chiddix holding on to the lead at this point in time. And Chiddix really has been a brilliant young driver. Of course, we know he's got some decent esports talents, given the fact that he's also competed in the CaterhamRacer.com e-series as well, and actually done a few bits and pieces. There's quite a few handy drivers in that, if we do say so ourselves. And Treddy's one of them. He has had some decent results, so it translates that he can do it just on the real racetrack just as much as he can in the sim. And
in the virtual world, you're racing against people with far more racecraft and experience. So the fact that he's able to hold his own in that situation shows how, whilst they're still learning at this stage of the year, they've actually, they've learned a lot of their racecraft already. And the front is, you wouldn't just be able to jump in and, even as an experienced racer and actually pull away from these guys. They are maximising that car, and it's really good to see that Chiddix is able to do that in the virtual world, but proves that out in the virtual world and in the real world, there's sort of good skills there.
We always said those races were good practice for the real events, weren't they? So it's like Freddie Chiddix was taking that to heart, I think. So Chiddix, case in point, pulling away by a couple of seconds now, as we see Jeff Newman's getting a bit too enticed by the fact that Mark Jones and Harry George are giving quite a lot of company here, as he's now starting to lose touch with Freddie Chiddix on this lap. The last lap time by, it was not 0.2 of a second was the gap. It's now about 2 seconds as they come across the line. Here comes Mark Jones to the outside to try and make the move on Newman. This is for second place. Already come up to a third, that's halfway through the race already now, 10.5 minutes to go. Through the right-hander. Harry George is sweeping this way, and that he looked for the move and saw Jeff Newman just throw the block immediately to the inside line. So he thinks, right, if you're going to make it difficult, I'm going around the outside, pal. Let's try this. As it looked for the switchback, no quite real way to get through there, it looked like, for the time being.
They've also got the late afternoon sun to contend with at the moment, and it was certainly an issue for some of the drivers yesterday. Coming up the main straight, you're heading straight into that sun, and you can see they're not all wearing tinted visors, so you'll certainly be squinting a little bit to make sure you can still see your braking markers and the other cars around you.
Be on the shopping list for next year, won't it? Tinted visors, to make sure they remember that for the Roadsport season, if they find themselves racing this late in the season, or they're this late in the day on a summer's afternoon. Freddie Chiddix, meanwhile, is driving like it is one, because he's absolutely charging away in this awesome trophy race. It's now leaving Jones, Newman and George to battle over second place. Here comes George down the outside for third, but Newman again holds that outside, but you can pass around the outside, and it has been done before. Better traction on the outside for George. He goes side by side. He'll go on the outside line for Williams this time, but Newman holds firm, just toes the white line on the inside of the right-hander. Now they're going to head down the straight, and with better momentum, there might be a chance Harry might get through, until Newman got the tow from the car in front, and now George has to slot in and get a tow of his own to make sure that Newman doesn't get away from him.
It's a very rare thing to see overtaking around that last corner, because most of the time you're just waiting for the straight, and actually it's normally the most sensible decision. But Newman there positioning his car very carefully inside that tow, and he knew at that point he could protect from Harry George, who has actually slipped down to 4th place now. So it is a 1-2-3 currently for the green group, and Harry George there holding honours for the white group, and see whether he can get back on that podium again.
So look at the rest of the group. We've got Chris Fraser's up to 5th position there, Benja Headley's 6th, Robert Domain 7th, Giles Perry is 8th, Theo Fiatu is having a better time than he had in his academy race earlier on. He's currently in 9th place, and then Neil Perry ends up with top 10. And a shout out also to Louise Dixon, she's up in the P11, it's not too bad for Louise. She can carry on going, she might even possibly get herself a top 10. Freddie Chiddix, who's spread eagling the field, has also pinched the fastest lap as well, 2 minutes 16.980. Meanwhile, here comes Jeff Newman trying to get around Mark Jones here as they turn through the right-hander, clips the grass inside line, drifts out a little bit wide, and that's going to allow Newman to get himself alongside. Harry George has got his tail up as well. The 3 of them head into the hairpin together, and Jones puts his car right on the apex, neatly rotates it right on the curb, and now we've still got Newman and George pressing on. Now they head in through the left-hander, up through Palmer. Still 7 3/4 minutes to go. Still a little bit left in this race, and Chiddix at the moment looks like he's got it under control, but of course it's never always as straightforward as that until they get to the flag. But second, third and fourth looks like this is the main battle to be here, to be on the podium. One of these three has to accept they're not going to be on the rostrum, but which one's it going to be? And trying to pick one out is going to be near impossible.
Yeah, and Harry George there, he was breaking it down the inside in a gap that didn't look like it was ever going to be there, but he persisted. He even used a bit of the grass going into Agostini that time, still managed to get the thing stopped, and I'm expecting to see that he would have actually exited that corner ahead. We'll wait to see the next time we look at that front field. But yeah, there's again a lot of I guess you've got to start scenting your territory, haven't you? You've got to start staking your claim and saying, you know, this is me driving here, and we're going to be racing next year in Roadsport. But I want to win these battles out. They are important to everyone. I know we said this is the end of season feel, that kind of graduation, but equally there's egos there to deal with as well.
Yeah, the story's going in for next year and scores to settle, isn't there? So this is where they pretty much start in many cases, particularly for those who are racing against academy drivers they haven't raced with over the course of the season quite regularly. There's a big lock-up between those two there, as Newman just about held on from Harry George, but Harry was just trying to get round the outside, and Newman just held off as long as he needed to prevent any kind of an attack.
Great race awareness there by Newman to put his car in exactly where he wanted to, make it really uncomfortable for George going up the inside there. And like you say, George grabbed a wheel, and that obviously just scuppered any chance he was going to make it up the outside.
That was the third group of cars we look at. Theo Fiato really has pulled away from this second group. That is trying to work out the group of cars. No, that is the second group of cars, because this is now Robert Domain, who's worked his way up into sixth position. He's now ahead of Chris Fraser, and also in there too now is Giles Perry and Benja Headley. So this is now a scrap between these four. Black and white flag has gone out to car 99, which is Benja Headley. So he's been given a black and white flag for track limits. That's a warning for him. So if he does it again, he will get himself a 5-second time penalty. He's probably so focused on the battle he's having right at the moment with Giles Perry to possibly wonder how he might be able to get out of that one. Side by side ender brakes for Domain and for Chris Fraser. Also in there too now is a car of Neil. And Headley, though, looks like he possibly missed a shift or didn't quite get the momentum off the corner that he wanted, because Giles Perry managed to pick himself around the outside, and now Neil Perry is going to get a chance to move through if he can.
This is a pocket of white championship races all absolutely going at it again, so they didn't have enough fun this morning, so they decided they'd have it all again this afternoon. Perfectly dry conditions now, of course. They had to, both the academy races had to squirm around the track, didn't they, a bit earlier on today, but this is actually perfectly good conditions for them now, and the full track available for all of their manoeuvres, and they're continuing their battle exactly as they left off this morning.
Yes, it's a proper, looking down what we've got in there, because we've got, as we say, Domain, Fraser, Perry, Headley and Perry. There is a little bit of a mix of both green and white in there. I see what you mean. There is some white group cars in there, but there's also a couple of green group in there at the head of it, kind of mixing amongst them. So good to see another inter-academy group battle here between these 4 or 5 drivers. Speaking of battles, now this is interesting. So Jeff Newman's been shuffled to 4th now. Harry George is now 2nd. He's moved up to. Little twitch of oversteer over the curb. Oversteer ran a bit too wide. He's up to 2nd. Mark Jones is now 3rd as he clips the curb right on the apex. The way these cars are a bit too picked on this circuit, the way they move around, they sit and they squat and they move around. It's brilliant to watch the suspension at work when they lean through these long corners and then start to nosedive a bit right under brakes and turn their way through. So now it's a chance for Newman to try and put himself back in contention to get a podium place. He'll be in the slipstream. Still less than 4 minutes to go. Freddie Chiddix, meanwhile, hasn't got a care in the world. He's just charging away. The gap now is 4.2 seconds. Harry George sets the fastest lap of the race, although he's just lost out to 2nd place. And Mark Jones, a bit cheeky there, just tried to bang words with him there as he went down into turn 1. Mark got a little bit too hot, so that's Harry George's revenge. He now pulls level with Mark on the run down towards the hairpin. Here comes Jeff Newman. He tries to gut the inside of both of them. Has his wheel just alongside Mark Jones. He's still done it quite several times before this year in the green group, but they've both been passed by the white group man. So up into 2nd place goes Harry George. A little further back, this is Louise Decent. She's having a scrap with the
Summers, I think.
Yeah, the 44 of Summers. I think Ian Summers. So that's now a battle over 12th, 13th and 14th place, I think, because Linton Knowles not too far ahead of them either. So yeah, lots of battles in between everywhere at in the pack in this race.
you mentioned sort of, you can see the dynamics of the Academy car, can't you? Because it's a little bit more supple. We don't have the rear anti-roll bar, and the car does move and squat, and you can really see that. And in fact, the whole point of it is, being a supple race car, the drivers as well can feel that movement and lean and momentum that they really need to sort of get to grips with. As we go up through the Roadsport and then through to the 270 and 310, the car gets progressively stiffer and more race-like, which actually means that you feel less of those dynamics, although in a Caterham it's still very much present, up until you get to the 7 UK Championship car, which is absolutely stiff as a board, and the slick tyres really demand that the car is that stiff. But in the Academy, you see that left rear wheel there really getting compressed and squashed as they push on around. Freddie Chiddick's showing there the car leaning as he's going around, and it's really nice that they can take the curve and see all the suspension reaction to it as well.
It's almost hypnotic watching them kind of bounce over and move around. Particularly, that's one also a great shot that we've had this week. Watching the cars come up pretty close in and watch them go through. Watching the cars in the driveway, you can see the rear of the cars. It sits and it moves around. It's a brilliant shot that we've got this weekend to watch them all go through. Not just the Caterham, everything else that has been racing here this weekend, to watch the dynamics of the car. It presses through quite a unique in British motorsport, thankfully untouched by all the mixtures. Now then, there's been a black and white flag out to Ian Summers, I think, for track limits. Also, there's 2 boards going out. The other board is for the more crucial one for Freddie Chiddick. It's the last lap board. He's got one more time around and one more lap as an Academy driver, because of course for all these drivers now, of course, when they finish, they'll be moving on to Roadsports or higher up, depending where they choose. This great battle continues to go on. Robert Domain now has Chris Fraser with outside. Oh, Isla Lowe's off the road. That's having a spin on the exit of, oh dear,
Williams, it looks like.
Williams, and I think she's damaged something on the front of the car, because that was 2 different angles. Those wheels were turning when she was turning right, so that she's given it a bit of a clout and damaged the suspension. Yeah, that's unfortunate. She's off the road. Looks like the left front had to take a bit of a whack on that one. But now, back to our scrap for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. So Harry George looks like he's got 2nd place relatively in the bag. This is the fight for 3rd going on between Mark Jones and Jeff Newman, who have been 2 of the drivers in Green Group that have been going at it all season towards the front. Now it's Mark Jones' turn to get one over on Jeff Newman, but Jeff can get a little bit sort of, he can get his elbows out when he needs to try and make a move. So coming up through Hamilton, he's got half a lap to go here.
He's going to have a yellow flag immediately as he comes onto the Bentley straight, but by the end I imagine that he will there'll be green flags back halfway down the straight, so he will be in a position that he can make that overtake. Harry George hangs his tail out there around Williams in a great way. I've seen George also get the fastest lap, I believe, 16.355, so taking those honours for White Group.
Down the back straight, of course no overtaking done the first part of the Bentley straight, because of course they're the yellow flag because of Isla Lowe's car that's parked up there. But for this man, Freddie Chiddick, well, he might have missed out on the Academy title, but he fought valiantly until the end. Looks like he's going to go and take a bit of a consolation prize. Oh dear, well, that's contact there between Mark Jones and Jeff Newman. Now then, of course, one might blame the other, saying, well, Jeff might say you didn't leave me enough room. Mark might say there was no way a move that was on there in that complex, but we'll leave that for the clerk of the course and the stewards. Meanwhile, Freddie Chiddick will head out of the final corner. It's at least something that makes up for missing out for the title. Out of the final corner, he gets to graduate from the Caterham Academy of 2021 in fine style. Freddie Chiddick wins the final Caterham Academy race, the special non-championship trophy. He wins and takes a fantastic memory to go to 2022 as the final Academy winner from the class of 2021. 2nd for Harry George, 5th for Jeff Newman, and they're still going at it at the final couple of the corners. Spencer Headley's gone wide. There was contact between Fraser and Robert Domain. They're all over the place. You can tell it's end of term, can't you? Because they're all action stations everywhere. Look, Mark Jones finishes 3rd. Mark Jones 4th, Theo Fiato 5th. Then it's Headley, and it was 3 abreast across the line for 7th. Between Fraser, Domain and Perry, and Fraser got it. Fraser beat Perry. Well, Fraser beat Domain by 25/1000 of a second, and then Perry, as in that was Giles Perry, got beaten by a further 10th, 0.126 of a second. So there's even a little bit of a remnants of what happened there to Robert Domain's rear wing when he crossed the line as well. But yeah, I guess final thought on that one, Chris. I mean, what an Academy year it's been, just regardless of even the COVID challenges at the beginning of the year. To come through, we've had 2 brilliant Academy years, one of the best last can't even speak, I'm emotional. Last couple of years that we've had. Two brilliant academy classes, green and white, and I'm certain they're going to make an epic Roadsport Championship class next year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Really good to see all the new drivers there, and the two runners-up in the championships there coming first and second in the Autumn Trophy. So that's sort of a little bit of just payback for those two there. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. The very dramatic completions to their championship today, and it's been really a pleasure to commentate on those for you today. And we've got all the other championships to conclude in just 2 weeks' time,
including yours, because you'll be in the 7 Championship UK trying to get yourself a strong result. I'm not sure whereabouts are you in the championship.
I think about 6 at the moment, so it might be a chance to get 5th, but it's all tight at the top as ever, Scott.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you ever so much for all your hard work on Caterham. You've been fantastic to give us the insight into what it's like to be racing Caterham and to give some entertaining thoughts on what's been going on in the race. And again, I know I used to say best of luck for the next couple of weeks, and we'll see how we get on. Let's quickly run through the final results of Caterham Academy, which is the Autumn Trophy. Freddie Chiddick's wins from Harry George, with Mark 4th and Fiato 5th. Then it's Benji Headley, Chris Fraser, Robert Domain, Giles Perry, and rounding out the top 10. And then from 11th downwards, it's Chris Roberts, Lyndon Arnold, Louise Decent, and John Vinson. They're the 16 finishers from Ida Lowe, Gareth Lucas, and Mark Kendall. And for that is the end of our Caterham Racing Actions. So those watching on the Caterham stream, thank you for doing so. Hope you've enjoyed all the racing here. Join us in 2 weeks for the season finale of Caterham Motorsport, where we've got Roadsport, 270, 310, and the 7 Championship UK all for their final rounds. Champions will be decided. We'll see you then on the BRCC stream. Keep watching, because coming up next, as we hand over the Christian Assembly, is the championship deciding final race of the season for the Avon Tyres National Formula